In 1971, inside a smoke-filled Chrysler boardroom, a mysterious government agent arrived with a classified message. Terminate the 446-pack engine immediately. But that was only the tip of the iceberg. This isn't just a story about a powerful engine getting killed. It's a story of conspiracy, internal rivalry, and the fear of power Chrysler itself had created. Why would a machine producing nearly 500 pound-feet of torque be cut off, even as drivers adored it and the market demanded more? Was it really the government pulling strings? Or did Chrysler kill its own creation out of jealousy? In this video, we uncover the shocking truth behind the death of the 446-pack. From rogue engineers to shadowy meetings where decisions weren't driven by engineering logic, but by fear and money. Back in 1969, during Detroit's infamous horsepower war, automakers were in an arms race to cram more power into their engines. And at Chrysler, a rebellious team led by John Worley decided to go all in. They took the already powerful 440 cubic inch V8 and bolted on 3 Holley 2-barrel carburetors. It was a bold, borderline insane design. Tuning all 3 carbs in sync was a nightmare. But when it worked, the sound it unleashed was like the Devil's Symphony. The 446-pack was born, not from a lab, but from engineers willing to defy corporate orders. At the time, Chrysler's top brass funneled resources into the 426 Hemi, their prized NASCAR weapon. But the 6-pack, it was the real street king, powerful, affordable, and tuner-friendly. Ironically, it was this success that started to backfire. The 446-pack began to steal the spotlight from the Hemi, and that made Chrysler nervous. They had ignited something wild and feared it could no longer be contained. So what made the 446-pack a true mechanical beast? It all started with the triple Holley 2-barrel carburetor setup, 6 barrels in total, hence the name 6-pack. At cruising speeds, only the center carb operated, helping with fuel economy. But stomp the gas, and the 2 outer carbs roared to life via vacuum linkage, unleashing the full fury of the 440 cubic inch V8. The result? A factory-rated 390 horsepower, but, more impressively, nearly 500 pound-feet of torque. That mountain of torque hit early, giving these cars explosive launches, a massive edge on the drag strip. But the 446-pack wasn't just about brute force. It came in cars purpose-built for straight-line speed. Fiberglass hoods, massive scoops, reinforced suspension, 15-inch steel wheels with no hubcaps, all designed to maximize acceleration. Truthfully, this wasn't just an engine, it was a launch weapon. And in the world of quarter-mile races, that first second meant everything. The 6-pack was built to own that moment. Dodge branded it 6-pack, a name that hits like a punch to the chest. Plymouth went with 6-barrel, still powerful, but with a touch of sophistication. Though the names differed, both used the same technical foundation: 3 Holley carburetors, aluminum intake manifold, and nearly identical performance. The real difference was in attitude. Dodge models like the Super Bee, Charger RT, and Challenger RT boasted aggressive, muscle-bound looks, street racers in factory clothing. Plymouth's Roadrunner, GTX, and later the Cuda leaned into cleaner lines, but with bold presence and serious punch. Each car had its own character. But when you hit the throttle, both unleashed the same thunderous roar from the 446-pack. No matter the badge, you were holding the reins of a true speed icon. Ironically, the 446-pack was never Chrysler's top dog on paper. That title went to the 426 Hemi, the company's crown jewel race engine with an official 425 horsepower. So why did gearheads obsess over the six-pack? The answer lies in its perfect balance of cost and real-world performance. First, the price. Stepping up from the six-pack to the Hemi meant shelling out nearly $900 more, about 30% of a base Roadrunner's price at the time. That was a deal-breaker for many buyers. Second, the maintenance. The Hemi was complex and temperamental. The six-pack? Easier to tune, less finicky, and more forgiving for weekend renters. And finally, on the street, where conditions are far from ideal. 440 six-pack cars could often hang with or even beat Hemi-equipped ones. That's what made it special. The six-pack didn't need to be the biggest or the baddest. It just had to be fast enough, affordable enough, and accessible enough to let anyone become king of the block. The years 1969 to 1970 marked the golden age of the 446-pack. In 1969, it was exclusive to the A12 package on the Roadrunner and Super B, featuring fiberglass hoods, massive scoops, heavy-duty suspension, and steel wheels without hubcaps. Everything about these cars screamed, "I was built to race." But in 1970, Chrysler decided to spread the six-pack's firepower. The engine became available in the Barracuda, GTX, Challenger RT, and Coronet RT, expanding across the entire muscle car lineup. Technically, the 1970 version saw slight upgrades. The compression ratio rose from 10.5 to 1 to 10.7 to 1, and the camshaft was revised. On paper, power remained at 390 horsepower, but enthusiasts knew the 70 version pulled harder and ran stronger. Yet this brilliance didn't last. Just 1 year later, the muscle car industry began to face a three-headed beast: the EPA, insurance companies, and a looming fuel crisis, a storm the six-pack wouldn't survive. By 1971, storm clouds gathered over the muscle car world, and the 446-pack was caught right in the middle. First came the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, empowered by the 1970 Clean Air Act. High-compression engines like the six-pack, which relied on leaded gasoline, were suddenly seen as public enemies. To meet the new emissions standards, Chrysler was forced to lower compression to 9.5 to 1, dropping the official horsepower to 385. On paper, it didn't look drastic, but real-world performance took a hit. Next, insurance companies stepped in. With rising accident rates among young drivers in powerful cars, premiums for six-pack equipped Roadrunners and Challengers skyrocketed. In some cases, coverage was denied altogether, making these cars financially out of reach. Then came fuel economy fears. The 1973 oil crisis hadn't hit yet, but by 1971, consumers were already eyeing gas mileage. Cars that guzzled fuel were starting to fall out of favor, and Chrysler's top brass knew it. With pressure from regulations, insurers, and shifting consumer demand, the 446-pack found itself cornered, and the escape routes were closing fast. Under regulatory and market pressures, most assumed the 446-pack died a natural death. But the truth was darker. It was executed from within Chrysler itself. Leaked documents reveal that in 1970, Vice President Robert Anderson slashed all funding for the six-pack program. He reportedly called it a Frankenstein cobbled together from leftover parts, a blunt dismissal of its value. But deeper down, the motive was jealousy. The six-pack was outselling the revered 426 Hemi, threatening the prestige of Chrysler's crown jewel. That bruised egos at the top. Worse yet, there were whispers that Chrysler sabotaged the six-pack's EPA emissions test. Engineers failed to install key vacuum lines, making the engine flunk, and then used the result as justification to cancel it. One whistleblower claimed, "We could have passed with a $12 part," but upper management said no. It wasn't the government. It wasn't the market. Chrysler pulled the trigger on its own masterpiece. Though quietly discontinued, the 446 pack never faded into obscurity. Instead, it became a living symbol of the wildest era in American automotive history. Today, cars equipped with six-pack engines, especially the 1970 Challenger RT or Plymouth Cuda, can fetch over $200,000, particularly in convertible form or with rare color combinations. But the true value isn't in dollars. It's in the visceral memories the engine evokes. The roar when all three carbs kick in, the gut-punch acceleration that pins you to your seat. It represents an era when horsepower ran unchecked, when engineers defied corporate orders, and when speed was a personal statement. The 446 pack wasn't just an engine, it was the spirit of the muscle car era. Something time may fade, but can never erase. In its final year, a secret prototype of the 446 pack, with experimental electronic fuel injection, was hidden in a Michigan barn. It never went into production, but rumor has it, this was a 500-horsepower beast, too powerful, too advanced, and too dangerous for 1973. So here's the question. If Chrysler brought back the six-pack today, could it beat a Hellcat? What do you think about this engine's fate? A legend betrayed by its own maker? Or a legacy that deserves revival? Leave your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Because next time, we try to start the forbidden prototype.